In the first hour of 1960, in the desert northwest of Phoenix, a fountain froze. It stood at the corner of Grand Avenue and 107th at the gate of a town that did not exist yet. The ceremony waited while the ice thawed. 5 model homes stood ready behind it, furnished, landscaped, priced from $8,500. By that evening, the salesmen had run out of contracts. They were writing deals on receipt books borrowed from the Safeway. The company that built this place says more than 100,000 people came through the gates that weekend. That number comes from the company's own records. The state's largest newspaper had declined to send a reporter, so nobody counted except the men selling the houses. Here is what nobody disputes. 237 homes sold in 3 days. The man whose name was on every sign was not there. His diaries put him in Las Vegas and Los Angeles for the first 8 days of January. There is no photograph of Del Webb in Sun City on the day Sun City opened. 36 years later, in the small town next door, a council will vote 6-0 to remove a 16-year-old boy from his grandparents' house. This film is about how those 2 mornings are the same story. It is the story of a promise, 4 words long, that built the richest idea in American real estate, and it is the story of who got the bill. To understand what was invented in that desert, look at what retirement was before it. In 1950, the government made films about growing old. The old person in them sits in a back bedroom in a grown child's house. He is waiting. The film calls this adjustment. The culture called it normal. There was no such thing as a town for the old. There were rooms and homes and patients. The first man to break that assumption was a real estate broker named Ben Schleifer. He had come to America from Minsk. In 1954, he visited a friend in a retirement home and came out appalled at the restrictions the place put on grown men and women. He bought 320 acres of farmland northwest of Phoenix and drew a town on it. He was not building a resort. His houses were 750 square feet and sold for under $8,000. The clubhouse was the old ranch house. The lake was a flooded ravine. His buyers were retirees of modest means, and by 1959, 1,400 of them lived there. He called the place Youngtown. The marketing said the quiet part with a straight face, live here and be forever young. And Youngtown carried one invention no American town had carried before, a rule written into the property itself about who could live there, an age line. On one side of it you belonged. On the other side, you did not. Not everyone thought this was progress. In May of 1956, the critic Louis Mumford, the most famous writer on cities alive, published an essay about housing the old. His title was an instruction, not segregation, but integration. He wrote that probably at no period and in no culture had the old ever been so completely rejected as in our own country. The town most people would learn to remember forgot him. In 1957, a television camera came to Youngtown. The broadcast was Wide Wide World on NBC with Dave Garroway. A curiosity item, a town with no children in it, millions watched. In Phoenix, the Del E. Webb Corporation was watching too. You have seen this company's work, whether you know it or not. Its founder had come to Phoenix in the late 20s with typhoid fever behind him, 100 borrowed dollars, and a carpenter's tools. He got his company the way men got things in that Phoenix. A contractor ran off with the payroll on a grocery store job, and the grocer asked the foreman to finish the building. Del E. Webb construction started with 1 cement mixer, 10 wheelbarrows, 20 shovels, and 10 picks. The war made it enormous. Webb's company built military installations across Arizona and Southern California at speeds nobody thought buildable. And in March of 1942, the government handed it a different kind of contract. In the desert by the Colorado River, on reservation land over the recorded objection of the tribe that owned it. They refused, the record says, to be a part of doing to others what had been done to their tribe. 5,000 of Webb's men built the post and internment camp. The first camp went up in under 3 weeks. 17,000 imprisoned Japanese Americans would live inside it. If Del Webb ever said a word about that job, no historian has found it. We looked. The silence is in the record too. In 1946, the company built the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas for Benjamin Siegel. Webb later told the story of realizing, mid-project, exactly who his client was, and of Siegel noticing his alarm and reassuring him, "Don't worry, we only kill each other." That line comes to us from Webb's own telling, published years afterward. He kept a check either way. By the 50s, this was a man who moved through 3 Americas at once: the Pentagon's contractor, the mob's builder, and half owner of the New York Yankees. What he did not have was a product with his name on the door. The Yankees alone made his name. 10 World Series in his 20 years as co-owner. One of the most famous names in American business, attached to almost nothing an ordinary family could buy. The retirement idea did not come from him. It came from 2 of his housing men, Tom Breen and Joe Ashton, who watched the Youngtown broadcast and wrote the concept down. Breen's memo rested on 3 words: activity, economy, individuality. One executive told Breen to see a psychiatrist about it. He went. The psychiatrist listened and said, "I think you're right, but I don't think you know how right you are." Then the company did something that separates it from every dreamer who ever sketched a utopia. It knocked on doors. A radio ad salesman named Lou Silverstein was paid gas money to drive through Florida retirement neighborhoods and ask people what they wanted. He heard one sentence more than any other. Write it down, because everything else in this film grows out of it. "I love children and my grandchildren, but I don't want to raise someone else's children." That is the charter. Everything Sun City became, the golf, the covenant, the tax line, the court cases, is that sentence, executed. The experts hated it. The Urban Land Institute sent 6 of the country's best land planners to review the proposal. They spent 3 days on it and told the company not to build. Old people, they said, want to live near the young. The residents would die off faster than new ones moved in. The company's operating chief, Jake Jacobson, weighed the expert report against the door knocks and chose the door knocks. In 1959, a cotton king named Jim Boswell walked into the Webb offices. "I see in the paper that you would like to buy a piece of property," and by 3 in the morning, the 2 sides had reduced 20,000 acres of the old Marinette Cotton Ranch to a letter of agreement on a yellow legal pad. Webb 51%, Boswell 49, about $650,000 each. They had land, a memo, a sentence, and an expert opinion that the whole thing would fail. The gates opened on New Year's Day. The fountain froze, the ceremony waited, and then the cars came. Highway 60 backed up along the cotton fields. The company had hoped for 10,000 visitors across the weekend. Its records claim it got 100,000. Remember who is doing the counting. The Arizona Republic had passed on the story, so the only numbers that survive are the sellers. But contracts are not impressions. 237 of them in 3 days. $2.5 million of houses written on grocery receipt books when the forms ran out. 400 more families had already mailed $500 deposits before the town existed. The 6 best land planners in America had said nobody would come. The houses were concrete block, 947 to 1,600 square feet. The cheapest cost $8,500 and faced a golf course. The company called it the first house in America under $10,000 on a regulation course. The ads ran nationwide with one slogan: an active way of life. Next door, the town that started everything read the news and did the arithmetic. That spring, Youngtown's little newspaper changed its own name. The Youngtown News became the Youngtown News and Sun City Sun. The first retirement town in America was now the second name on its own masthead. Everything about the launch had that same improvised confidence. The town's name came from a national contest the company had commissioned from a professional contest firm. In December 1959, Webb thumbed through the entries, said "I like Sun City," and walked out. The firm refused to certify a winner picked that way, took its $20,000, and went home. The official winners, a retired couple from Oregon, had to be located by police, who found them wintering in a Palm Springs trailer park. Webb also entered his own contest. In a sense, he won one of the model homes, moved into it that October, and moved out 5 months later. The town itself was 5 months old as a construction site. The golf course earth had first been moved in August. By New Year's, there stood a 12-room motor hotel, a shopping center with a fully stocked Safeway, 9 holes, a community center with a pool and shuffleboard, and the 5 furnished models. A complete miniature of a town built in one winter, waiting to see if anyone wanted it. And the company hedged its bet in a way almost nobody remembers. Filed with the county sat Plan B. If the retirees did not come, the land north of Grand Avenue would become an ordinary family town, houses, an industrial park and schools, 1,300 homes sold in year 1. The 3-year goal had been 1,700. Plan B, with its schools, went into a drawer and never came out. Remember that drawer? He was in Las Vegas when the fountain froze. 2 years later, Time magazine put his face on the cover. The Retirement City, a new way of life for the old. The same article noticed something the cover did not say. Webb could not stand life in his own Sun City, it reported, for more than a few days or a few hours. Hold both facts at once. The place worked, the man was a brand. Neither cancels the other, and this film needs both. Because the place did work. When sales collapsed in 1965, 395 homes that year, a former caddy named John Meeker took over and invented the vacation special. Stay a week at the motel, play the courses, see a show, take home a box of cactus jellies. Buyers converted by the hundreds. The town crossed 10,000 people, then 20. And in December 1964, its residents made the town's most important decision. They voted on whether Sun City should become a city, a real one, with a mayor, a council, and city taxes. 72% said no. The question never came to an official vote again. Sit with what that means. 40,000 people would eventually live here, in a place with no city government at all. The rec center boards would run daily life. A volunteer posse would answer the phone. The county would mow the medians. A town is a machine for sharing costs. Sun City had just declined a machine. So the question this film opened with comes due. Who pays for what a town needs? Sun City sat inside the Peoria School District. Its residents had no children in the schools. Under Arizona law, they voted on the district's money anyway. Between 1962 and 1973, the district put 8 bond issues to its voters. 5 failed. The reporting at the time was blunt about the geography. The bonds were passing inside Peoria and dying in Sun City. While the bonds died, the children arrived anyway. By 1973, Peoria schools were running double sessions. Classes met wherever a room could be found, including church buildings. The man who ended it was Peoria's own superintendent, Mel Huber. He went looking through Arizona statute and found an old law that let a territory leave its school district. In 1974, he used it on Sun City. His own words carry both halves of the decision. Philosophically, I didn't think they should be relieved of tax-paying responsibility, but it was the only option. The retirees left the district, and Peoria has built a school or more every year since. Notice what just happened, because it is the hinge of this film. The charter sentence, "I don't want to raise someone else's children," had been a preference, then a covenant. In 1974, it became a tax boundary. The promise was now a line item. Sun City's own historians tell this story with the arrow reversed. Peoria invited them out. The record of the bond vote says what it says. We show you both framings. The ballots are the receipt. It happened again, and the second time nobody could call it an accident. In 1978, the company opened Sun City West, the sequel, one district over, inside Dysart Unified. The Dysart playbook ran faster. Within 3 years, the new community's voters had elected their own people onto the district's school board. A bond the district had already passed the year before was rescinded by the new board, money approved, then taken back. Then came the divorce vote of 1981, and its arithmetic deserves a screen of its own. De-annexation required both sides to agree. More than 2,000 Sun City West voters turned out and voted overwhelmingly to leave. From the entire remaining district, the families, the parents, everyone else, 500 people showed up. Exhausted, outvoted for years, they approved the separation too. Both sides, for opposite reasons, voted to stop being one place. The deal came with a fig leaf. A commercial core was left inside the district's boundary, so business taxes would keep flowing to the schools. Ask yourself what business builds on the taxed side of a street when the untaxed side is 1 block away. Homes grew where the shops were planned, and the fig leaf joined Plan B in the drawer. The Residents Association does not hide any of this. Its own history page lists the outcome as an achievement. No school tax in the original area, about $475 saved per 100,000 of home value. Their words, their arithmetic. And a third time, in the late 90s, the expansion neighborhoods fought to follow. The seniors sued the ward system that guaranteed the district's families a voice and won. They swept the board elections. The county drafted a ballot that would have let the retirement precincts vote on de-annexation 4 separate times. The district sued, and a court ruled the seniors would be counted as one group. By then, the district had lost 4 straight funding elections in 3 years, and it cut $800,000 where districts always cut. Art, music, physical education, athletics, the gifted program. 2/3 of Dysart's 4,000 students were Hispanic. The retirees were a third of the electorate, and they voted as one. The mayor of Surprise, a grandmother named Joan Schaefer, said out loud what the region was muttering. She told the Washington Post the retirees were selfish, self-centered, gray-haired old farts. She called the secessions a cancer of education. The retirees had an answer, and it was not stupid. Hayes Cape of the Sun City Taxpayers Association put it plainly in 1989, "We are not against schools, we're just against being hooked too much for nothing." A lifetime of school taxes already paid, somewhere else, for somebody else, services they would never use. Hold that answer. This film owes it a fair hearing, and will pay in Chapter 6. First, a harder question. Children are a protected class in American housing law, and have been since 1988. So how does a town with an age wall exist at all? The Fair Housing Act of 1968 named what America could not do in housing: discriminate by race, color, religion, national origin. Read it as long as you like. It says nothing about age, nothing about children. For 20 years, the age line was simply legal. Arizona's courts had even blessed it. In 1974, in a case called Riley against Stoves, an Arizona appeals court upheld a deed restriction limiting a subdivision to adults. The covenant had the state behind it before Washington ever spoke. In 1979, Maricopa County gave the wall a uniform. It wrote a senior citizen overlay into its zoning ordinance. May 30th, 1979, county law, drawn on top of Sun City's private covenants. The rule was no longer just a promise between neighbors. It was zoning. Then, in 1988, Congress moved. The Fair Housing Amendments Act added familial status to the protected classes. Refusing housing to a family because children live with them became presumptively illegal in the United States. Every age-restricted town in America was now standing in the path of federal law, and Congress, in the same act, opened one narrow gate: housing for older persons. A community may lawfully exclude children if it qualifies, and the qualification is arithmetic, At least 80% of occupied homes must house someone 55 or older, and the community must publish its intent and prove its numbers. In 1995, Congress loosened the gate further, dropping the requirement that such places provide special services for the old. After that, the wall stood on paperwork alone: surveys, affidavits, files. Understand what this means, because everything that follows depends on it. After 1988, an age-restricted town is not a place with a preference. It is a place with a compliance obligation. The exclusion is exactly as strong as its records. Sun City understood. To this day, every home that changes hands files a sworn statement of occupancy, signed under penalty of perjury, that someone 55 or older lives there, and that no one under 19 will stay past 90 days. The wall is not history. In 2022, a Sun City resident asked the county for a permit so a relative under 19 could live with her as a caregiver. Neighbors organized against it, afraid for the overlay. The county board denied the permit. That is the machine running. Now watch what happens to the one town that never did the filing. Youngtown, the first. Schleifer's modest little grid, still sitting in Sun City's shadow, still carrying the original age rule. One resident 55 or older per household, nobody under 18 beyond 3 months. In 1996, a 16-year-old named Chaz Cope moved into his grandparents' Youngtown home. He was not visiting, he was escaping an abusive stepfather. His grandparents told the town the truth about him because they thought honesty counted for something. In December, the town council voted 6-0 to order him out by the 19th of January. His grandparents faced $100 a day in fines and up to 10 days in jail for each day he stayed. The neighbors were not monsters. Listen to them. A barber named Gary Locke. If you let one child in, then you have to let all of them in. We are a retirement community. A neighbor, gentler. Your neighbors must come first. They're trying to tell you, I need my rest. That is the charter sentence again, 37 years on, spoken by people who had organized their whole last chapter around it. The boys' version, I think we should have gotten brownie points for being honest. What is the council teaching me? That it's better to lie and cheat. The story went national, and the Arizona Attorney General, Grant Woods, stayed the eviction. Years later, he remembered the complaint that started it. The boy was shooting baskets into the night, and a lot of these oldsters didn't like that, and his own reasoning. What would you want him to do? Go live on the streets? His office investigated for about 10 months, and here is the ending nobody in Youngtown saw coming. The investigators did not weigh compassion against covenant. They went to the files. Youngtown, the first age-restricted town in America, had never properly obtained or maintained its qualifying status under the federal law. The surveys, the published policies, the 80% proof, the paperwork of its own exclusion was not there. The town did not lose its wall. It turned out never to have had one. The restriction was declared unenforceable, and by 1999 it was repealed. What happened next was measured, which is rare for a story like this. 2 economists tracked Youngtown's house prices against the neighborhood. The age restriction had been carrying a real price premium. Within 12 to 18 months of the collapse, the premium was gone. Same houses, same streets, same golf light. The exclusion itself had been worth money, and the market repriced its absence almost immediately. The town flipped. 2,500 people became 7,000. A place that had been 80% over 55 became a place where a quarter of the residents are children. Geographers wrote it a scholarly obituary. The paper is literally titled Memento Mori, recording the sequence among the older residents who stayed: out migration, anger, depression, acceptance. Chaz Cope, grown, gave the shortest version and made it so anybody could live in that community. Now the fair hearing this film promised. The residents' case deserves its best form, so here it is. They paid school taxes all their working lives in other towns for other people's children. Capes line again against being hooked too much for nothing, and inside their walls they genuinely built what towns are supposed to buy with taxes. The volunteer crews that maintain Sun City save the county real money every year. The sheriff's posse, 140 volunteers, all over 50, handled 40,000 calls in a single year. The inside of the wall is not a scandal. It may be the most successful volunteer civics in America. The educator's answer is one sentence from the same 1989 record. Those children they help to educate today will help pay Social Security tomorrow. And the market supplies the control case. Corte Bella, a 55-plus community nearby, sits inside its school district and pays full school taxes. One resident counted $33,000 of his own money over 11 years. Realtors say some buyers will not even look at homes there once they hear the word school taxes, which settles one question beyond argument. The Sun City discount is real money, and the discount someone receives is a cost someone else absorbs. Here is where the title of this film comes due. Webb did not invent retirement. A broker from Minsk got there first. Webb's own men wrote the memo while he owned the Yankees, and on the morning the gates opened, he was in Las Vegas. What the man on the Time cover did was brand it, scale it, and sell it better than anyone before or since. The inventing was done by something smaller and colder than any man. A sentence written into deeds, then into zoning, then into a tax map. If this story were folklore, it would have faded with the people who lived it. It is not folklore. It is a line in a table. Every year, Maricopa County publishes the tax rate for every piece of ground it governs. Find Sun City. The county's own label for it reads, Peoria Unorganized, no school. Total rate, $3.7797 per $100 of assessed value. Across the line, in Peoria proper, 5.6805. The difference is the school levies. The charter sentence, 66 years on, printed by the government in a public document every single year. In March of 2026, the Peoria district announced it was closing 2 elementary schools. The town itself is aging inside its own invention. The median resident of Sun City is now over 72. CBS found a woman living in the house her parents retired to in 1968. The founder's generation is leaving, and their houses are turning over to a new wave of the old. The critics never went away either. Maggie Kuhn called these places glorified playpens. A later writer read the No Children Covenant as a wall against more than children, and noted what the census showed. The original Sun City in the year 2000 was 95% white. Their arguments in their names on the record. Look at the circles one more time. A man from Minsk drew an age line around 320 acres and died broke chasing a kinder version of the same dream. A company knocked on doors until it found a sentence America's grandparents were afraid to say at Thanksgiving. Experts said no one would come and 100,000 came, or so says the only ledger left, which belongs to the company. The man on the magazine cover was somewhere else entirely. The town they built works. The pools are clean, the posse answers, the volunteers mow what the county cannot. All of it real, all of it paid for. And on the 1st of January, 1960, while the fountain thawed at the gate, every person in that line of cars was carrying the same 4 words, whether they said them out loud or not. I love children and my grandchildren, but I don't want to raise someone else's children. The county still prints what those words cost. It just prints them in a different column.